What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Crumble, and I'm super excited about the new Ellie season. So, because Ellie holds a very special place in my heart, since it was one of the games I made videos about and streamed when I first started streaming, it's a really important game for me. And back then, I had pretty good success with Merchants Guild. And today I'm going to give you some general tips, some ideas, some useful tricks, and just an idea on, what to do if you're going Merchants Guild. I'm not really going to touch on Circle of Fortune. Also, small disclaimer, I have not played the game in a year, but the concepts are absolutely the same. The ideas are the same. The mechanics are still the same. So everything I'm going to say in this video is certainly going to be useful for you. Probably there are some people more knowledgeable with more build specific knowledge when it comes to the game, but the tips I'm going to give you right now and the tools to use for Merchants Guild are as things that will always be useful in the game. So I hope that at least some of this information maybe will be useful to you guys if you're going the Merchants Guild. I'm not going to touch on any comparisons between Circle of Fortune and Merchants Guild. I'm just going to generally say that I like the idea of having two factions. I think both are viable. I think both hold their value. Generally, guys, if you want to min-max a build to its full potential, then definitely Merchants Guild is for you. If you want to have a good time, no stress, no pressure, want to see some loot explosions, go Circle of Fortune. If you like economies and ARPGs like me, if you like trying to get rich, if you like building characters to the absolute max, then, be my guest and join our faction. We'll be happy to have you. I must say that I have not played the game in a year. Still, the game is very important to me. It was one of the first games I started making videos on and started streaming. And it's so good that I am literally returning to streaming after a year-long hiatus. And the game is getting hype again. And I'm so excited about it. It's like literally like living this shit again from a year ago. But anyway, okay, let's get straight into the things I want to talk about. Just quickly, I want to say I'll explain what Merchants Guild is. I'll talk a little bit about the bazaar, which is where you conduct all your transactions, if I was to say so. I'll touch on some decent farms. I'll touch on how to recognize some items and generally what items actually sell in the Merchants Guild. I'm going to touch on, some endgame strategies quickly. Definitely speaking about tools. I'll speak about builds and how to, go through builds and get information about what will be sellable in the bazaar or like Merchants Guild. And last but not least, I'm going to drop off the Merchants Guild community so you guys can join in. And that will basically be the structure of the video. I'll have timestamps in the description below. So without further ado, quickly, I'm just going to say, if you want to join the Merchants Guild, it will happen in chapter 9. You'll probably be about level 45, 50, depending on how you play the campaign. Or now, if you've skipped most of the campaign and went through Echoes, as soon as you complete Temporal Sanctum, you can go and take the Merchants Guild faction. This happens in Majelka's upper district, which is right here. I'm not showing anything in the game today. My schedule is all over the place. I don't have any offline characters. I can't log in right now. So I'm going to show you screenshots a little bit of the game. So just to give you like a better idea on what to do. But yeah, you go here, right next to the waypoint, there's a guy called NPC called Zerek, I think, or something like that. I might be wrong. You talk to that guy. He'll give you a quest to pick, like in the observatory, there's Circle of Fortune, and then there's the bazaar. I think the NPC in there was something with 10, I forgot the name. Anyway, so you take the quest, then you can press M and go to the waypoint, the bazaar, directly, or you can walk over there. and you're going to talk to the NPC that's next to the waypoint in the bazaar. They'll basically welcome you into the faction, and now you're part of the Merchants Guild. Okay, what do you do once you start being a part of our faction? Well, first of all, you won't immediately be able to trade everything. Now, that's a caveat for the Merchants Guild. You need to get a little bit of reputation before you can trade for all the items. Generally speaking, at start of the season, I would say focus on progressing your reputation for a day or two, and then start trading as much as you can. Now, there's some things that you can trade in advance, like idols, for example. You can probably trade 4 hours within start of the season, which is okay. They do make a fair amount of money. You can start off right away. But basically, this is how it looks. You have rank 1, which you get immediately. This is trade basic items, which is normal, magic and rare items that you can trade for. These items aren't really special. People aren't too excited about them. So focus on getting a reputation. About rank 4 is when you can start selling idols. Yes, rank 4 you sell idols. And from there on you get into exalted items. I'll talk about exalted items a little bit as well. And I think at rank 9, 10, 11, 12, you can trade for like literally every item, especially unique items with legendary potential. But usually the sweet spot is about rank 7, 8 when you can trade for most of the exalted items, because in my opinion, exalted items will make you the most money unless you get like insanely lucky and drop like a 3 or 4 LP sought after item. Then, you know, you can make a bank on that. But generally speaking, I guess within like 6, 7, 8 hours of the game, you'll be at the very least rank 4. And then at rank 8, it really slows down, but I'll let you know how you can like speed up sort of your progression. So when you get into this faction, there's 2 things you need to pay attention to. So one of them is your rank, and then the other one is favor. How do you get rank? Well, one way to get rank is by spending favor. Favor you get by killing monsters. The higher the corruption, the higher level of monsters, the higher favor you get. Basically, favor is tied to experience. The more experience you get from killing monsters, the more favor you get. Now, there's 2 ways to spend favor. One of the ways for Merchants Guild to spend favor is to list items, and then there's this interesting situation at start of season, or not even at the start, even later in the season, a lot of unique items with 0 legendary potential will be listed for 0. If they're easy to find, there's 2 reasons we list them. First of all is to spend your favor, so you can gain ranks. And second of all, you kind of help other players in the faction, you know, get their build started. And I think this is really good, because if you help other players get a rank started, and they progress faster within the game, in that sense, then they get to trade for other items sooner, which means you can benefit from them later down the line. So basically, you're investing into the economy in that way. But anyway, in my opinion, still the best way to spend your favor is the NPC right next to the waypoint in the bazaar. There's like a gambling option. There's a couple of bases. You can buy those items. If an item there costs like 25k favor and you buy it, you gain 50 points basically for your rank, towards your rank, 50k points. So you get like double the value out of those. But still, if you have like some you know, easy to find items that hold no value, you might as well list them for 0 so someone else can benefit from them. But yeah, at rank 8, it basically starts really slowing down. The best way to do this, to rank up, is to go higher corruption, basically as high as you can. This is why I think if you're doing Merchants Guild, especially on season start, you need a solid build that can really push at start. And basically, that's everything you need to know about how to get into the faction, how it works. Just a quick mention, there's many NPCs in the bazaar. Unfortunately, unless they've changed it this season, you can't trade through one NPC. If you want to list items, you have to go to the specific NPC for that item type. So for example, helmets are traded with one NPC. And if you want to sell your weapons, for example, like one-handed sword, you have to go to another NPC. And for boots, you have to go to a third NPC. That's a bit annoying. They're kind of close together. But, you know, you get used to it eventually. The good thing is that you can grab your profits from the same NPC in the end. So it doesn't really matter. But once you get used to it, it's not that big of a deal. Now, searching for specific items can be sometimes hard because they don't have a lot of they don't have a way for searching, for example, for empty modifiers, like empty prefix or empty suffix, unless they change that in this season. And there's some inconveniences, but you get used to it. Idols can be really hard to look for because you can't adjust values, really, unless they change this. That's still like a little bit of a setback, but it is what it is. We have to deal with the cards we get anyway. Now, if you want to make profit with the Merchants Guild, what you need is a solid build that can do high corruption, because high corruption equals good items. And there's several strategies. Some of them don't require you to be in high corruption that can you do a lot of profit. Now, I must say, in Merchants Guild in Last Epoch, you cannot flip items. Once you buy an item, it's tied to you. You can no longer resell. This is to counter economic manipulation, which I think actually for the game is healthy. And also now they're introducing taxes. You have to pay 15% of the tax if you're buying, if you're purchasing the item, not if you're selling it. So that's quite nice. Now, there's also different strategies about going into the Merchants Guild, and I'm going to talk about items first. So there's 3 types of items. Well, you could say 4 types of items that really sell well in the Merchants Guild. But the 4th one is for like veterans or like more experienced players. So I'm going to start off with the easy one. So first you have idols. Idols drop from several places. You can get them in echoes. You can get them in dungeons. There's this dungeon called Lightless Arbor where you can target farm idols. You can get a lot of idols. I know now leaders drop idols. Basically, idols are very accessible. And the thing about idols is that everyone needs idols. And we need a couple of them, right? Every single build needs a couple of idols. And so this is going to be one very good item that you can sell. Especially when it's generic idols. So idols that have like health, all elemental resistances. And then you also have the class-specific idols that are really sought after, especially if it's for a meta build. But these you learn with time. But at start, idols is one of the things that you can start listing. People won't be able to buy your other items quite right away anyway. So, you know, that's something to focus on at the start. I personally like to focus on ranking up as soon as possible. I want to get max rank in Merchants Guild. I want to push to high corruption. So honestly, for a day and a half, I probably don't really interact that much with the Merchants Guild, except if I need to spend some favor to rank up. But until I get to like rank 5, 6, 7, 8, when I can list exalted items, I don't really touch it that much. Exalted items are actually one of the things that sell the most. They also make you the most profit, and they're actually quite bulky when it comes to selling them because they have several uses. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you're new to Last Epoch, what the hell is an exalted item? Well, an exalted item isn't an item that you slammed with an exalt. It's an item that drops with a modifier that's tier higher than 5. So 6 or 7 really is what we have as options. Now, if you drop an item that has tier 4, tier 3, and tier 5 modifier, that's just a rare item. If you drop an item like this one, now that's the rare item. You can see T5, T4, T3, and T3. And this is an exalted item. It's purple, and the modifier that makes it exalted will also be purple. So you can see here, you have T7 attunement. This is an exalted mod. and there's several uses for it. That's why exalted items are really sought after in the Merchants Guild. Now, the first use is, obviously, T6 and T7 modifiers give you more stats. So, for example, attunement is a stat. T7 will be the Maxroll. So if you want to have a modifier that's like highest possible on the item, you would go for that exalted modifier. So for example, you can see here this attunement is what gives this item the exalted modifier. Now you can have items with double exalted modifiers, and if these modifiers go well together, and especially if they're on a good base, then you can definitely make a decent chunk of gold from that item. But the good thing about exalted items is, first, you have items that come with like a decent base, decent exalted modifier, and then decent like second, third, fourth mods that you can use for your build, and you can just use that item as it is. Second option to use an exalted item is if you want to craft an endgame exalted rare. So like when I say exalted rare, I mean like an item that has exalted modifier and three or four other modifiers. And I'll talk about this in a bit because there's sealed modifiers as well. So you can get up to 5 modifiers on an item. And in order to get the specific item that you want, you might actually have to brick several exalted items in the process of crafting it. Now, don't get me wrong, crafting in Last Epoch is extremely well done. It's also extremely easy once you get the gist of it. But it's normal that if you want to get your min-max 10 game item, you might have to, brick a couple of items before that. Now, mostly because you have limits like forging potential, and forging potential determines how much you can craft an item. And then you have rune, the same rune as, for example, Annulment Orb in Path of Exile. So you remove a modifier, and then you can end up removing your exalted modifier, and basically the item is bricked. So until you get like a decent or like the specific pair, for example, of gloves that you want, you might have to brick several exalted gloves in order to get your desired outcome. Now that's the second option for exalted items. And the third thing is you have unique items with legendary potential. Legendary potential, for those of you who don't know, is a modifier on unique items that's quite rare to get, but once you get it, you can go into the Temporal Sanctum and use the Forge, and with the Forge, you can move stats from an exalted item, modifiers from an exalted item, to the unique item without losing any of the unique modifiers. So you have a unique with extra exalted modifiers, or not exalted ones, but you need to use an exalted item on the Forge. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but this shows you that there's many use case scenarios for exalted items. Thus, my conclusion is that exalted items are literally the bread and butter of Merchants Guild and of trading in this game. So if you're farming to make profit, you need to be familiar with exalted items. Now, you don't really have to be familiar, but the more familiar you are with what exalted items and what exalted modifiers hold value, the better profit the higher profit you'll make. Now, this is very interesting. I'll mention a bit about exalted modifiers later. And the third item type of item I want to talk about is literally unique items. Now, this one, for example, is a unique item with 1 legendary potential, drops released, and you can see the red modifier on there. This red modifier is basically an exalted modifier moved over to the unique item through the Temporal Sanctum's Forge. And this is what makes uniques with legendary potential really strong. If you get a unique with like 3 LP or 4 LP, LP being legendary potential, it can sell for a massive chunk, especially if it's an item that's sought after. 4 LP items, almost always, if they're decent, will sell for a massive amount of gold. But even, 1 or 2 LP items sometimes, if they're meta, they can sell for a massive chunk. So it's good to get familiar with the prices of uniques. Unfortunately, we don't have any pricing macros. We don't have any third-party websites to check prices, like in PoE, for example. We don't have a trade site. But what we have, the next best thing is a community, a Discord where they, kind of keep track of prices. I had a spreadsheet for unique items priced back during release. Unfortunately, I'm not renewing the spreadsheet. It's a lot of work. I want to enjoy the game. I want to stream the game. I want to experience the gameplay and have fun. And honestly, 2 hours a day of price checking, just so I can save like, 30, 40 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. It's not worth it for me personally, even though I want to help the community. But I think I'll be more useful if I help the community by, exploring different strategies, talking about crafting and stuff like that. And now I mentioned crafting because, in my opinion, crafting is the really end game, way of making gold in the Merchants Guild. Crafting, for you to be crafting, it requires a lot of experience. It requires you to be familiar with meta builds, with what specific exact modifiers and what bases are good for which specific builds. And then if you happen to get, for example, an exalted item that has a good modifier and a second good modifier, and then you can finish the whole crafting process if there's enough forging potential. Yes, you're at the risk of losing the item, but also if you have a finished product that someone can just buy and slap on their build and just start blasting with, this could obviously hold like a very, very high price in the merchants, bazaar. Now, this is something that you learn through time. This is something that will require you to get familiar with meta builds. And this is my next point. If you want to make a lot of gold in Last Epoch through the Merchants Guild, you need to familiarize yourself with as many builds as possible, especially the meta ones. Now, you have 2 tools for doing this. I think it's quite simple, but it could be time consuming. The caveat, or like another good addition to learning builds, so you know which items will go for like a decent amount of gold, is that also during that process you get familiar with the game more and you get familiar with different builds. You might see something you like, you might get an idea for your own build. It's just generally learning the game that way. I actually like doing this, but basically what you do is, for example, you will go to a website like Maxroll.gg, where they have some meta builds. A lot of players will definitely be looking at those builds. You go to tier lists, click on endgame and corruption tier list, for example, and here, first builds that you want to get familiar with will be the S tier builds. For example, let's go to Warpath Void Knight. I know for a fact a lot of players will be playing this build. How do we find out what items are good for this build? Well, we basically look at the gear in the equipment section. Now, this build is mostly using unique items, but don't fret. Unique items will show you what exalted items are good. Now, if you hover over here, you will see that this sword, Death Clotus Needle, has 2 modifiers added to the legendary potential. One of them is melee attack speed, and another one is melee void damage. And you immediately know that those 2 modifiers on an exalted two-handed sword will definitely have some value, especially when they're together. This is exactly what you need to learn which exalted items have value. Now, if you go over this ring, you go and see critical strike chance and 90 health. This means health is a good modifier, critical strike chance is a good modifier. If you have exalted item with both, you have a really good item. Same for the belt. 30 ward gained on potion use, hybrid health, sorry. So now if you have those 2 on item, immediately that, this exalted item will sell for a bunch. These gloves are a finished product. You can see they have shred, mana. The exalted modifier here is mana, melee attack speed, and hybrid health. Immediately, this means they also have increased crit strike chance affix there. So this is basically one of the newer items. When I say newer, I mean since release. But yeah, if you have this pair of gloves, it means you have the finished product. So if you can get to craft this, especially on that base that has mitigation to damage over time, you basically are making bank on this item. This item will be very sought after, especially like newer people who try to replicate the build 1-to-1. In many cases, they won't know, like how to move different affixes around, or like what's the second or third best thing. So they'll be trying to get as similar as possible an item to this one. And the closer your item is to this one, well, the more bank you're gonna make. Now you can go through this, like for every build, you can check the starter items, which will give you, a general idea of what will sell earlier. And then if you go to the aspirational content or like a gear, then we're speaking very, 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 very big items, and generally they have a lot of profit. Now, another thing to keep in mind is modifiers that have skill-specific increases. For example, 110% increased echo damage when a skill is echoed is a class-specific modifier. These also sell for a decent chunk, especially if they're exalted. You can get a lot of value out of items like these. They're also quite random when it comes to dropping them, but these items sell for a lot. Like you can go back to build guides. My bad. You can go back to the S tier ones. Oh, that's another tab. Let's check, for example, Ballista Falconer ZHP. Now here you see that this build starts off with, mostly unique items, but you can see, a good basis crit chance, for example, with Dex and +2 to Ballista, which is a class-specific modifier. Then you can check the gloves, and you have basically an idea, of what's decent. Then when you get to the end game, you can check and, guess what exalted modifiers will be good. Now, if you don't want to stress with this, there's a strategy that can be quite convenient for you. It still allows you to blast in game without worrying for pricing too much. It's still good to have some familiarity with builds when you do the strategy, but basically the blast and dump strategy is where you just keep blasting your maps. You loot literally everything, drop it in some dump tabs in your stash tab, and once you're done with your farming session, just grab all the items, list them, for example, at 50k, 100k, 150k gold, and if they sell, they sell. You don't really care, you don't mind. First of all, you're blasting anyway, you're getting that favor, so you don't mind listing a lot of items. Second of all, yes, you might miss some value, but you won't be that busy price checking. And, if you are familiar with certain modifiers, or you know what to look for, you can still stop and take a minute to price check that specific item and list it for a little bit more. But everything else you literally, dump on trade, and eventually it might sell if you hit the right price. You never know. But this is also a very solid strategy, because this way you're getting probably like 2 times the items, and thus you have more time to blast, more potential for getting good items. And then with time, you can get more familiar with what sells, or if something sells quite fast, you can stop and have a look at it and think about, why did this sell for this price that fast? And then, adjust your knowledge. But knowledge is really, guys, something that you need in Last Epoch when you're trading. And my suggestion, if you're going Merchants Guild, is try to be like a sponge. And when I say try to be like a sponge, I mean try to soak in literally everything. Every piece of information about, builds, about items that you can sync, try to understand it. And especially if you see someone looking for a specific item, or like an item selling fast, or like being sought after, think, why is this item sought after? What do these modifiers do? Why are these modifiers so good that, people are ready to pay a premium price for them? If you, get used to that type of mentality or way of thinking, you'll quickly understand you know, the player base, and then you'll be able to make some conclusions on, you know, what's good to do in the game and how you can get the most gold out of your farming sessions. Now, there are several things that you can do in order to farm items. One of them is high corruption echo farming. Specific echoes, you can check here. Specific timelines have specific echoes. Those specific echoes give different rewards. So for example, Fall of the Outcast Monolith gives unique set, bow, or quiver. And this goes also for the exalted items within that. Blood, Frost, and Death will give you unique or set body armor. But also, the exalted items as rewards of the end of the echo will be, you know, body armors. So this is a way to target farm specific type of item that you want to farm. If you find that, for example, you know, let's say exalted gloves, there's several bases of gloves that have exalted modifiers, and all of them, you know, sell for a decent price. You know, you might think to yourself, overall, I want to farm gloves. I know that, you know, like every second or third drop, I'll have something decent when it comes to exalted items, and I'll make a decent chunk of gold. So, you know, spamming ending the storm is, you know, my target farm, for example. Now that's one. That's monoliths. Then you have bosses. When I say bosses, it means within the specific, you know, monolith, there is a boss. And this boss drops specific items to that boss. For example, Strands of Souls. That's a well, it might not be one of the best belts right now for ward builds because ward is getting nerfed. It doesn't really matter. I'm still playing a ward build. But anyway, you want to farm Strands of Souls. I remember on release, when I noticed my randomly dropped strands were selling well, I decided to farm, you know, this boss for a day. The boss in Fall of the Outcasts. And I was dropping many of these belts and I actually made a decent chunk of gold during that time. Now, this works as well with bosses in dungeons. If you want to farm specific items, you can check. This is LastEpochTools.com. Very useful website. Make sure you take advantage of it. I'll post it in the description as well. And so far, Bastion also has decent items that you might want to farm. Basically, this is, you know, one of the ways you can target farm. Another way to target farm is by doing Lightless Arbor. But instead of going, you know, you still kill the boss, but at the end of the boss, you know, there is a vote of uncertain fate. And this vote of a certain fate will give you up to 10 modifiers at the cost of your gold. Now, keep in mind that this is an endgame strategy, because if you want to, you know, fully use this to its best potential, you have to spend approximately, I think, about 2 million gold. You can get up to 10 modifiers, and the strategy is this. Basically, you pick one type of item. Let's say you want to pick exalted helmets or exalted, let's say idols, for example, if you want to pick idols. So first you add a chest that has idols. The order doesn't matter, actually. You just need to make sure you only pick one type of item. It doesn't matter in what order, because at the end you get options to, here it says 11 modifiers actually. So you can get up to 11 modifiers. But you get several options. At the end of this dungeon, Lightless Arbor, you get several options. So there is a door, you go to the door, you speak to the guy within the door, there's like a face, and it starts giving you options. Each option, when you accept it, you have to pay with gold. And at the end, when you get 11 modifiers or you've declined enough offers, basically, you know, you open the door, and there's chests inside, you open the chests, loot explosions, enjoy. Right, but there is a way to min-max this. So let's say, for example, you pick a chest with exalted helmets. You add this one chest. After that, you want to make sure to duplicate and triplicate that chest. So duplicate every chest and then triplicate every chest. And as well, you can go all chests drop more exalted items, all chests drop more items, You also have here, all chests drop more items, and then a random chest drops 45%, for example, more items, multiplicative with other modifiers. These are the modifiers you want to take. Now, if you take, for example, exalted helmets, make sure you don't add anything else. You don't add idols, you don't add set items, you don't add unique items. Just focus on that one specific item that you've picked. Duplicate, triplicate, additional modifier that item, more items, and you basically target farm that specific thing. This is an endgame farm because it requires 2 million gold on average, you know, to open the door. But for example, if you're farming idols, you know for a fact there's several idols that sell for like 4 to 5, sometimes 10 mil if you get like a jackpot hit. Sometimes you can actually get this item twice, like literally a duplicate of the item, or like 3 times, and you can make bank. So if you're familiar with the market and you know there's several types of, you know, for example, several idols sell for a premium price, you know that, you know, you can, if you can sell one idol for 5 mil, that allows you to do, you know, this farm 2.5 times. And in the meantime, until you hit that idol, you still get other idols that still hold some value, for example. The same is with exalted items. So Lightless Arbor is one of the endgame farms if you want to make some decent chunk of gold. Exalted items farming, if you focus on those, you can make a decent chunk. Nemesis is a really good league mechanic or like a game mechanic that they've added since I was away. Nemesis is really good. It can, you know, get you some really strong outcomes. You can empower items and, you know, you can get unique items with 2 or 3 random LP, for example, that, you know, if you hit something good, it can still sell for like a very solid chunk. So Nemesis is definitely a good thing to farm. Exiled mages are a very good thing to farm because, you know, experimental affixes, which drop only from exiled mages, are, well, not anymore, but anyway. Experimental items are very sought after, especially some of these modifiers that they have. So those are good. You know, you can still, you know, go and farm monoliths. It's okay if you don't want to do this type of farm. I personally prefer farming monoliths in very high corruption. But yeah, that's basically it for this farm. Now, if you want to farm favor, there is a specific strategy about favor farming that people have used. I want to give credit to FrozenSentinel. I'll actually drop a link to his video in the description. There's a way at high corruption where you spawn a beacon echo with a very good and dense layout, and you start spamming that beacon echo until you basically farm all your favor. The way this works is you set up your monolith in high corruption to have that beacon on a good layout echo, and then you start spamming that echo, you go to the end, you activate the beacon, you complete the beacon to about 50% because that gives you the most XP. Before you complete that beacon, make sure you do some echoes that have enraged modifiers because this will increase the XP gain of all the echoes in that specific echo web. And you just start spamming that over and over again, and you can farm up to, based on FrozenSentinel's data, probably up to 250k favor in an hour if you have a fast and strong build and you're like about 1k corruption or 2k. It really starts falling off the higher corruption you go, but like I think even after 300, it's still a very decent, you know, favor farm. So make sure you check FrozenSentinel's video if you're more interested in that. That's much later, and it's definitely more relevant for Circle of Fortune. But if you're actually listing bulk items like crazy and you want to farm some favor, this is definitely a viable option or a good thing to keep in mind. If you find a good layout on a beacon while you're pushing corruption and you're already past 300, maybe it's worth to farm this for a while to get your Merchants Guild rank up. So that's also idea. If you want to list more items, but you're struggling for favor, you can also do that farm for a while. I'm pretty sure immediately, you'll catch up on favor if you do that. Now, a very important thing in Last Epoch, if you want to have good profits with the Merchants Guild is loot filters. Now, there is an issue with loot filters. If you go to LastEpoch's build planner, for example, and you actually go to loot filters. Also, I forgot to mention, build guides in LastEpochTool also very big. Make sure you familiarize yourself with those. But yeah, let's go to loot filters. If you go 1.2 and you type merchant, you see that there actually isn't any merchant loot filters. Let's type merchant here. Sorry, I'm bad at typing. You have some from release. Let's see the latest version actually. You have 2 filters from 1.1.7. Now this one says season 2, so it might be usable, but honestly, I don't know this guy. I don't know if I can trust them. So, for example, let's say you don't know like any of those names. One loot filter that you can trust, I'll give you in a minute. I must say before that unfortunately, the game only gives us 75 rules for loot filter. So if you're creating a loot filter, you can only have up to 75 rules. Now, 75 rules in this game are not enough to highlight all the good items that we need in order to make profit. So thus, what people do in the Merchants Guild is they grab 2 loot filters or 3 or 4. If you really want to, to get sweaty, like really sweaty, you have one generic loot filter that will show you all the exalted items, all the uniques, all the idols. You grab those. And then you have 1 or 2 extra filters, the so-called sorting filters. What you do then is once you have like, a long gaming session and you've dropped every item in your dump tabs, you can then drop those items from your dump tabs on the ground and you can start going through the other additional filters if you want to have more specific sorting. Now, there's a community in LastEpoch. It's called the Sanctum Market. It's an amazing community. They saved me from keeping, from updating my spreadsheet back in the day during release, which was like killing me at some point because I would spend 2 hours every day to, update the prices. These guys will have prices for everything here. Now, unfortunately, right now, I don't really see prices. Maybe I've hidden them. I'm not sure. They used to have prices. I guess they've hidden those channels right now. But if you come here, you will see they're preparing probably some stuff. But more importantly, they have their TSM loot filter, which is right now is a work in progress, but they will have one soon enough. If we go to announcements here, and this is also just join this Discord, guys. This is like the trading Discord. This is where we'll help each other. A very big takeaway here is if you go to, for example, Big Sales Gallery, you can see, what items actually sold for a decent amount of gold. You can see what's good. And a lot of people will be posting their exalted items as well, as you can see here. Like, you can get a lot of information here and learn a lot about trading. There's some, content creators here that also, have some useful information that you can grab. Myself also is here, shameless plug. But more importantly, these guys, if we go to announcements, you'll see that they're back in full power in season 2. They'll, do their best to let us have a good time, help each other with pricing. The interesting thing about a trading economy where you can't actually do market manipulation or flip items, it turns out that everyone within that faction actually helps each other, and we try to teach each other more about pricing and what's good and what isn't. So if you come to this Discord, make sure if you can help these guys out. Any feedback, anything is useful. They don't have a lot of stuff right now. They're doing their best. I know for a fact that back during release, they were doing amazing. There was a lot of people in their Discord and everyone was helping each other. It was great. Now, the filter will drop soon. Make sure you grab the filter. I'll include a link in the description to the Sanctum Market. to Maxroll GGG, to LastEpochTools, where you can check, you know, some builds to get a general idea of what actually sells. Now, quickly, before the end of this video, I'm just gonna give you like a general idea. Now, for example, if we go to build planner, let's go back actually. Can I go back to my original build planner that I had earlier? I guess we've lost it. Anyway, right. Just let me give you some ideas about modifiers. So on weapons and, you know, catalysts and stuff like that, good modifiers are crit chance, crit multi, you know, it could be melee attack speed, flat melee damage. These are good, you know, exalted modifiers. Now on boots, you have cooldown reduction, you have movement speed, you can have hybrid life on belts, on boots as well. You can have just flat percent, not flat percent, just percent life. Some of the sealed affixes, if they're exalted, can go for more. For example, I know for a fact that if you get percent of life per second gained as sword, that's a big modifier. Let me see if I can find it. Sealed affix. Armor and reduced bonus damage from crits is a big one, because when you enter empowered monoliths, actually enemies have a lot of crit, so that's something people tend to go for. Armor in this game is not like armor in PoE. This is actually one of the main defensive stats. Basically any build takes advantage of it. Let's see, where is the sealed affix that I'm looking for? Experimental is what I'm looking for. Okay. Ward per missing health. This is the one. So if you go here, save. Wait, I didn't pick the base. Really? Seriously? Here we go. Save. Now this, for example, of current health loss per second and then of missing health gained as ward is literally build enabling for ward builds. It's really strong for ward builds. If you have that modifier, it's gonna sell for a lot, especially if it's on a good base, not like hide gloves as in this example. But yeah, keep an eye out for those modifiers like cast speed, crit multi, crit chance, health, hybrid health, movement speed, CDR, all the stats, especially the main ones, which are dexterity, strength, and intelligence. Maybe they won't hold the same value right now, because with the new, you know, with the new season we get, with the new season mechanic, the Weaver stuff might, you know, actually enables us to change stats quite easily on items. So they might not hold that much value, but we're yet to see, you know, what happens. Now I'm gonna talk about the Weaver tree for a little bit. You know, just in my opinion, give you like a general idea of what might be good if you're going the Merchants Guild for profit. Now, let's go through some of these notes real quick. I don't want to hold too much of your time. This is already a very long video, but anything with champions is going to be good, I think, because champions have increased drop rate, and they drop exalted items. They drop a lot of things. Let's see. If we go here, maybe grab one of these additional exalted item in your echoes. That could be good. If you want to go loot lizards are always good, always decent to kill. This will let you guarantee a unique item from loot wizards, which is pretty big. It's actually pretty big. You can get a lot of unique items that way. You can have here increased spawn chance of loot wizards. I don't know how much they nerf them. We are yet to see. I think these imprint nodes are very big when it comes to the Weaver tree. This is not necessarily the order I would go in, by the way, but I think these nodes are very big. So you can place a woven echo here, especially this one. Place an armor or jewelry to imprint it, especially this one here, Commoner's Riches. Place a weapon or jewelry item to imprint. You know, you can place, for example, a very sought after item in this and make sure you get a lot more of it. Experience tombs are kind of irrelevant. Maybe early if you're pushing, you know, for favor, You can grab these 2 nodes. It's okay, but I wouldn't really stress them. I think this is a very big one. You can drop, you know, you can put like a decent item here and, you know, get more of it and make profit this way. This beacon doesn't really matter. Block nodes are really good if you're farming echoes. I think you can block a lot of things. You can grab this lizard node here because it will give you more exalted items. But you can block, you know, keys. You can block glyphs. You can block runes, and you can block experience. And then your nodes will basically be exalted items and, you know, exalted items, unique items, set items. It like this will really increase your profitability. I think this 3 really advocates for a boss rushing strategy where you just rush echoes. I'm yet to test some of this stuff. Let's see. Nemesis is really good, as I said. Definitely grab the Nemesis nodes, in my opinion. Nemesis, I think, is a broken mechanic. You can grab these Nemesis nodes as well. Now, I don't know about cemeteries and woven echoes and these things yet. Now, Tombs of the Erased probably is a good thing to grab. Boss specific rewards could be good depending on what you're farming. I'm not entirely sure. Tombs and cemeteries, if you go this way, you could get some good stuff. Now, champions, drop powers of woven echoes seems really strong to me. Champions are more common. Champions in your echoes have a chance to drop uniques with at least 1 legendary potential. I think this is pretty big. I think champions are the new, you know, I think champions are definitely in this season what a lot of people will be focusing on farming on, because they seem to have buffed them quite a lot through that tree. This also probably pretty big, because champions will drop more of that imprinted item. It's extremely big. These nodes for me are like, especially this echoing riches looks amazing. Like this will definitely help if you're doing monolith rushing, echo rushing, and just doing as many echoes as you can per hour. I think this node is amazing. We'll get to it soon. Arena echoes, in my opinion, are kind of useless. You know, echo rewards are doubled, can be strong for echo rushing. You know, woven echoes here. Gain bonus for timeline stability once you've set up your corruption. I don't really think that this matters that much, but realistically, maybe it's worth grabbing. Weaver's Will items. These items actually could be very good. So if we go, let's say we go this way. Wait, I'm out of points. Hold on. I'm gonna make some points just to show you, you know, what I think is good. Real quick. Let's say we don't take lizards, for example. Yeah, if you go through here, for example, grab this for more woven echoes. There's some really good woven echoes, guys. Like if we go here and check woven echoes, you'll see, for example, you can focus on stuff like let me see, something good maybe. Descend into a labyrinth tomb of the erased and defeat the ascendant firstborn to weave new tombs of the erased into all surrounding echoes. You know, you can focus on more tombs this way. You know, here, this is an interesting one if you're focusing lizards. Before he vanished, the Barnacle King stashed his treasure in a hidden vault deep beneath the ground, searched for the lost vault within the caverns, and altruistically free the overburdened lizards locked within the caches. So pick one of these, you know, pick one of those woven echoes that you think will yield you the most profit, slap it here, you know, and you have a more chance to get that in your echo web, and you can do the same one here, and, you know, even more chance for that same echo. Champions appear in pairs, really good in my opinion. Additional power of gold and chance to drop unique item, I think is pretty good as well. For champions, I'm telling you guys, champions is, you know, the new meta in my opinion. Boss objective echoes have a chance to contain 2 bosses instead of 1. And drop an additional unique item when slain. Pretty big in my opinion. Dungeons, you know, dungeon keys could be useful. if you're target farming dungeons for like specific profit or like specific uniques, you can block arena echoes here, really good. Like as I said, the blocking nodes can be really good if you're target farming something. Loot wizards we went through. I think egged out mages is not that big of a deal. I think it's fine if you skip eggs out mages. It's just a matter with this tree. I think if you decide whether you want to get more pack size, for example, here with burial grounds, or if you want to go for like echo reward rushing, if you want to go for getting as many loot lizards and nemesis on your map. Maybe you want to profit through that. Really, this is like the Atlas, for example, of last Epoch. I think it's very good tree. There's a lot of things to experiment with. I think it's gonna be fun. Definitely, try to decide for yourself which nodes are good based on what you think is worth farming. There will definitely be a lot of discussion for this tree in the Forbidden Sanctum, and maybe based on this discussion, what was that saying? When everyone's digging for gold, make sure you sell shovels. So maybe you can think a step ahead and adjust based on what everyone's trying to grab on this tree. But I think the tree generally is helpful to anything and everyone, and it just is a matter of personal preferences based on what you want to farm. I think this is it from me. This video actually ended up being extremely long. I was yapping for a whole hour, guys. I'm really sorry. I haven't done a one-take video in a very long time, but my schedule is all over the place right now, and I don't have time. We have in 3.5 hours the release of this season, and I'm quite excited to play it. I'll stream it at the beginning. I'll probably go to bed early though. When I start streaming, I might need to grab a nap quickly because my schedule, as I said, is really bad. You can catch me streaming at twitch.tv/CrumblePoE. I'll be streaming this game a lot for the next few weeks. I'm looking to try a couple of builds. My plan is to actually start with a Warlock. Warlocks are usually OP into the end game. But even if my build can't really push high corruption, I'll be able to respec because they've made respecking extremely easy right now in the game. But yeah, if you care about Merchants Guild and some trading, feel free to drop by my stream. I'll probably be price checking items all the time. So I'll be sitting there and trading a lot of the time. You're welcome to come and chat. If you found this video in any way whatsoever useful, please consider dropping a like or maybe even subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content from me. I'll probably be doing some economy recaps. Let's pray that there's no gold dupe this time in this season. But yeah, that's it basically. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below what you're planning to start farming. If you're going Merchants Guild, what build you're going for. Basically everything. I'm interested in everything that people are doing right now in the game. I'm so hyped. I was really disappointed by PoE2. Not gonna talk about this in the video, any more than what I already said. And that's it from me, guys. Crumble out. I hope this was somewhat helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.